This is not going public, is it?
Welcome to La Casita Martinez, where we indulge in the art of deep conversation and vulnerability in pursuit of self-love, self-expression, and self-value. I am your host, Samantha Martinez. On this week's episode, we're sitting down with my friend, Katie Simbala, a creator, musician, artist, and entrepreneur, as she shares her journey of growth and self-discovery. Amiga!
Hello.
I'm so happy to have you on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. This is nice.
Of course. My friend Katie, who is a world traveler.
World traveler.
So I can't believe I got on your books.
Wow. Oh my God.
Fancy.
Please. I'm glad you got in with my assistant.
I know. That was super fancy. I want one now. So Katie, we met 3-4 years ago. And I mentioned this to someone that I am really good at telling if someone is going to be my friend or not within the first 2 minutes. And it's not petty. It's not anything catty. It's just like our energy was on the same wavelength. Mm-hmm. And so when we met in nursery at church,
Yes. Yeah.
I was like, okay, she's cool. And we don't even hang out. Like, when was the last time we saw each other? A year ago, maybe?
Yeah.
For the photo shoot?
Yeah, for a photo shoot.
Longer than a year.
For sure. Yeah, it was definitely longer than a year. It was during COVID. Like at the very beginning or something like that.
Okay.
And nobody was leaving, going out nowhere. So yeah.
Okay. But I cheer you on from afar, and I am honored to have you on the show. So to me, you are a strong woman with a really incredible story. You're a creative, and I'm always like so intrigued in what you post and what you're doing, what you're creating. But tell us, who is Katie?
Katie is a regular girl from the Bronx.
My fave.
You know, I grew up in New York City, and like most scrappy Bronx kids, you know, we didn't grow up with much. Leaving New York City was pretty traumatic, but ended up in Baltimore. And in Baltimore, I kind of found myself. I became an adult in Baltimore. I got married super young. I got married at 20. And spent a really long time in ministry, just traveling up and down. I sing and was a worship pastor for many years, and got the opportunity to travel, and doors opened for me to do big events and do the whole singer thing, and then slowly transitioned into visual arts, with church still being kind of the place for me to desarrollar. How do you say desarrollar?
Create and evolve.
Yeah. It helped me kind of just work on my gifts and my skill set. So the church definitely gave me that platform for sure, to just try everything out, and kind of transition into video, and then eventually into film. And it's kind of where I'm at right now, where I'm working on films. Other people hire me to do their films, and I also am working on my own personal projects. And I think I'm a storyteller. I think I'm somebody that uses their gifts to spread love, to spread hope, to spread goodness. And most people don't think that that's what I'm offering. You know, when I say that I'm a queer polyamorous woman, which is a huge part of my identity as well. If we're going to ask who is Katie.
Yeah, of course.
I'm a mom. I have a beautiful son, super intelligent, apple of my eye. And yeah, I have my husband, Louis, and my partner, Raquel. And we all live together in Baltimore City, and we're trying to fulfill purpose and live in love and be a light to the world. So that's who Katie is in a little bit of a nutshell, for sure.
Awesome. So when you talk about love and hope, I know you mentioned in conversation before, that was something that was lacking in your childhood. And we want to focus self-love and self-acceptance. If you feel comfortable, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood and how you evolved into being someone that is proud of who you are, because that's not something you always felt.
Yeah,
correct?
for sure. Yeah, I grew up in an environment, like I mentioned, where, there was a lot of need and a lot of lack. I had a mom, who lost her husband. My dad passed away when I was 9. So when you're living in New York City and you have one income, like that for anywhere in the spectrum in New York City, that's difficult.
Yeah.
And so you have my mom working 3 jobs, extending herself to the very max. So she's stressed out. There is no space for love, compassion, and hope, and all these things that you need, patience, but I understand it was just the circumstance. As an adult, I can look back and see that. But I think there was definitely just encouragement and, also like mirroring of their own shortcomings or their own insecurities on you as their children. So I felt like I had a lot of that growing up, where it wasn't the most conducive for a young lady developing. And, I was always a bigger girl. And that also played a role in, our culture's fat phobia and just the not meeting the expectations that my mother wanted in a daughter. My mother continues to be a gorgeous woman. And had my older sister who was also like a very petite girl, and then they have me, and I take after my father's family, so we're more bigger boned, and she just didn't really even know how to dress me. She didn't like, or nor cared to. It was kind of like, you're this way because you're fat, so let's go to that and I'll deal with it. So it wasn't good. It wasn't positive. I guess I'm regarding just my my exterior, kind of the way I projected to the world and the way people saw me. That was the thing that I felt extremely insecure about. But when it came to my brain and my abilities and my gifts, for whatever reason, I was extremely confident. I had no problem. Like, I remember even as young as, I think it was like maybe 8 years old. The piano player didn't show up. And by this point, I had already been practicing at home, just like, I know 4 chords, okay? And I know like 10 songs that we could fit in this 4-chord structure.
Let's do it.
And I told them, I went up to them super confident. I'm 8. And I'm like, listen, I got us. You're going to sing this and you're going to, and I just took control at such a young age. It was very easy for me to just be confident in my gifts. And I think that carried along with me as the journey went, that even though I wasn't super confident with my weight or how I dressed or any of that stuff, super uber confident on my gift set and my skill set, and felt really good that it never took much for me to learn things. Let me rephrase. If I wasn't good at something, immediately I gave it up.
Okay.
And then the things that I was really, really good at, I hyper focused on them.
Yeah.
So it was kind of that. I didn't waste time on things I wasn't good at, which probably is not necessarily the best of things. But it's kind of the way I feel like now, like I said, it's definitely carried with me, and feeling like, oh, I'm confident in my skill set. Maybe I haven't had a lot of time in the film industry. And no, I didn't go up from a PA all the way up to the position of DP that I'm at now. I didn't go through that. But it was because I started this from the very bottom. I was the PA. I was the audio person. I was the lighting person. I was all of these things before getting to this position. So I feel like my experience has made way. My gifts have made space for me in many occasions, in places that I didn't think I would be allowed into, where people are with their PhDs. People are here theologians, you know what I mean? And somehow, some way I end up at the table with these brains, and somehow I'm able to speak to the same subjects that they are able to speak to, even though their learnings are from books and theory and philosophy. But mine is coming from, hey, this is all I've got. And it's an experience. And somehow it can match a PhD. To me, that's kind of crazy. That experience can have that much of a weight. And I think that's what helps me be confident. I don't think it had as much to do with, I still struggle. I think most women, I don't know, I don't think there's one woman that will tell me I'm 100% fully confident in every single part of who I am. There's always something. So I think it's just very similarly of like the things I'm not good at, I'm just not going to focus on them. Why? Not for me, doesn't make me feel good, because now I'm constantly having to measure up to a certain expectation. So if I'm not meeting that expectation very quickly, then I just move on. So I think here it applies for me. Like it's not that I don't focus on my physical appearance. Like, I still try to do the Pilates thing and try to, make sure I'm eating right and not like going full fledged off the deep end. But I try to just focus on the things that I'm good at, and that helps me feel confident about the way I carry myself in the world, for sure.
Yeah. And what do you attribute that confidence to? Like, even as an 8-year-old girl, like our kids are 7. Yeah. Do you see that confidence? Look at like so then you
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Because I don't really see, like, I have to push my daughter to be like, okay, you're good at this. Try, like, use your voice, do this. So I don't, and even thinking back when I was 8, I didn't have that confidence, I don't think. So is your mom like that? Was it something that, like, survival? Was it, what do you think sparked that confidence even from a young age?
I think being that young, for me, it was definitely somehow, some way tied into trying to make like my father proud, in some way. Like, he loved music. He loved the fact that I was so I leaned towards it. Like, I really loved it and wanted to sing. Like, he would buy me pistas and make me sing in front of his friends and would bust out the piano and say, Katie, play the 4 chords, and sing the song, And I just felt like, and when he passed, it felt like this is the way I can honor him. And it always felt like I'm trying to make him proud. Like, I'm trying to see that, oh no, I'm still doing the thing you love that I do. And so I think when I was that young, I do see it in Lucas. I know that he's turning 8 this year, but he still hasn't found his thing. Me, it was music from the get. It was like this fixation on it. Like, really, it really was a fixation. And Lucas hasn't found that thing other than like, his Legos and his cars quite yet. But I see his confidence. The kid says things to me that are pretty bizarre, and like, he'll say things like, Mom, I'm going to be a billionaire. Mom, like, I'm going to have apartment buildings and they're going to have helicopter pads on the top so that I can fly in. And I'm just like, wow, what? Like, I'm not gonna trump. Like, yes,
of
son,
course,
you can totally do that. He's like, I want to build cities. I'm like, baby, you can do it. It's like this sense of confidence that comes from, and even on certain things that he shouldn't be super confident on, he swears he's good at it. So, maybe he's got that same kind of confidence. He hasn't found that thing yet that kind of makes like that. I could say is like, oh my God, it's like we see it as clearly as it was with me. But I do definitely see his confidence. He's the only thing he receives at home is nothing but confidence.
Right.
And just applauding him and encouraging him to just keep trying if he's not good at something, and realizing that I play it with my son too. I'm like, baby, if you're not good at it, move on. Yeah. Let's just move on, and then I think you might become a jack of all trades, but I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah, no.
Everyone's trying to have differentiation of streams of income. This is how you maybe do it. Yeah. So that's what I'll say.
Yeah. So your joy and love of music started in church.
Yes.
And is that when you became then the worship leader, and I was able to experience that, which is wonderful to see you. Tell us where you are in that space right now. You've recently moved away from that role.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I had to, so like I mentioned in the beginning, I'm queer, I'm polyamorous. And, when being in the church, that means we were hiding for a really long time. So when you met us, we were hiding.
You said my best friend, Raquel.
Yeah, my best friend, Raquel. And it was such a hard season for us. I was struggling to figure out, what are we doing? Really, what are we doing? Is this somebody that's going to be in our life for the long haul? I just had a kid is this my kid's mom now? Like it was a lot to take in, and we really didn't know. So there was a lot of processing happening when you met me. So just imagine that, the heavy processing, and yet still the grace and the move of the Spirit that was felt and sensed in those spaces. I feel like there's something to be said to that, you know, like we could be going through any certain circumstance. I feel like we're all capable of being a vessel to be used for the glory of God. And queer people don't fall in line with that, like in the sense of that others believe that we're worthy of being still with being a vessel that's used by God. That's the part to me that I'm trying to show that yours couldn't be more wrong. I've always been queer, and this anointing that's over me has been over me since I was that young. I remember very clearly singing songs, and the presence of God would just sit with us. Everyone in the room would just be quiet, and everyone's having experiences all around the room. And that was happening. I'm 10 years old, and I'm praying for people. God using me to speak words of wisdom into them, and I'm a child, and I'm saying things that I was like, yo, that's crazy. But I mean, and all the while being queer and hiding. So, you know, when it came to the point where you met me and Raquel and Lewis and all of us as a little family unit, coming out felt like, especially when I started leading worship for the American side of the church, that's when it got more real for me, because they wanted to record like albums for the church, because what they started seeing was that people were showing up, because the church started growing. People started showing up. They started giving postcards out saying, what brings you back? What do you love most about service? They showed me the cards: worship. Music.
No,
we feel God
incredible. I
here.
remember,
Anointing. Wow. We come, and like, so they were like, we want to invest into that. You know, we see how God uses you. We want to use that as a tool, evangelical tool, to bring people to the church. And for me, of course, as a worship leader, you that's like the
goal.
That's the goal, that someone else could see your talent, that's willing to put money into it. To me, was like, oh, I reached a new level. But it felt like I would have become victim to that personality, or that person that I had been projecting for so long, because I wasn't this straight monogamous, you know, woman with a husband, you know, that had this perfect seeming marriage. I was a polyamorous queer woman. And, you know, going back to my past of like, you know, the trauma that I faced as a child, there was a lot of shame around it, and I had to do a lot of hiding, a lot of covering up and putting it, you know, so that no one could see that hurt. No one can judge that hurt, because they can't see it. And when I moved to Baltimore, I made myself a promise to not lie anymore, to not lie about, to be authentic, and so when I found myself in the situation with Rax, I found myself, I'm lying again. I'm falling back into the same routines, and it was bringing up all these old feelings that I had of shame, when I shouldn't be ashamed of this love that I'm sharing with this other individual, when it has brought me so much life. And there is a version of Katie pre and post Raquel. There is, anyone who was a part of my life before Raquel knows what I'm talking about. There was a difference in the way I carried myself and the way I believed in myself versus after I meet Raquel. I changed. Without a doubt, I changed completely. And I know that had a lot to do with her building me back up after being in an environment that in the Latino church, all they do is make you as a woman feel like you're beneath them. And the moment that you try to challenge that, they remind you by putting you in your place. I feel like I experienced that over and over and over again, leaving that type of environment and now being in an environment where I'm being celebrated. Now, you know, everybody's like, Katie, wow, we believe in you. We're going to give you money to make an album. It just felt so different. It was such a parallel experience, like after I meet my partner, Raquel, and before her, and felt like I wasn't honoring her place in my life by hiding her. So coming out felt like it was a way to keep my word to my younger self of, you're not going to have to go through that again. Like, you're not going to have to lie and hide.
No.
And yet I found myself doing it again. I was like, I'm not going to do that anymore. And so coming out felt like almost like restoring that sort of faith that my younger self had in me almost, you know, like even that was
Making
really
yourself
hard.
proud.
Making myself proud of myself because I was doing the thing that I said I would never do again. And back then it was because of, you know, it was abuse. It was manipulation. It was telling me that if you told anybody, you know, you would go back to poverty. Is that what you want? You know, and making me feel like I had to do this thing with my body in order to be stable. You know, it was traumatic and it was horrible, and then it was causing those same feelings to come up again. Why do that to myself?
Yeah.
I felt, you know, so coming out felt like it was the natural progression of what needed to happen, and then coming out obviously results in me being let go from that church. But the pastor let me lead worship one last time after telling him, which I thought was very kind of him. I will say that. I think in any other scenario, that would have never happened.
Yeah.
It would have been immediate expulsion. Don't come back. He believed in my call because he saw what happened in his own church.
Yeah.
People that first Sunday, they were arms crossed, didn't want to, you know, really have this Latina girl, you know, in their very, very white space. You know, it's Annapolis.
And you don't have like a soft
I don't have a soft approach to
voice.
things. I don't.
You're a powerhouse.
It's in your face.
Yeah.
It's there. I had people putting in earplugs. It was really, they really just didn't want it. And to go from that to my last Sunday there, because I was emotional and I think I was just leaving it there. There was a move that was so beautiful. There were people on their knees, hands raised, people running to the altar, just having this, just feeling the Spirit of God in that place. And that was a completely different church, you know, by the time I left it. And I think the pastor recognized that. And so now I currently, what I do is host my own little worship pop-ups, and those aren't on any sort of schedule. It's not every month, and it's not every couple of months. It's whenever I feel pulled towards doing it. And currently I'm actually going to be having one in May. Yeah, I'm going to have one in May. And because I feel like it was needed. Like people just started asking me, Katie, when are you doing it? I need it. The people start to come to me and say, hey, Katie, I'm thirsty, dude. Like I'm hungry here. When are you doing the next one? So I kind of leave it like that for right now. I don't feel called to congregational ministry in a sense like of like being a pastor or feeling like I'm called to this flock. I feel that I have a message that needs to be pushed and spread, and I'm finally coming to terms with that. Finally coming to terms with at the beginning it felt like, oh well, you just want to talk about yourself and like no one who wants to hear about you. Why would people want to hear about you? Who are you? How are you important? You're Oprah? Like of course everybody wants to know what Oprah went through, you know, to become Oprah. Who cares how Katie became Katie? You know, it's the voices, right? The voices that come through my head. But trying to look past them and say, no, there's a message here that there's all these other voices that are damning us, condemning us, vilifying us. Somehow we're a threat to traditional marriage. And it's like, how about I'm going to be on this side now and be equally as loud as you. And all I'm going to tell people is like, I don't know if I'm right. I don't think I'm here to be right. I don't think my purpose here is to become this certain person. I have no certainty. I have no way of knowing if I'm right or wrong. The only thing that leads me is the one thing that Jesus taught us was to and by their fruits they shall be known. How do people feel when they walk away from a conversation with me? Do they feel hope? Do they feel love? If a person walks away from a conversation feeling fear, feeling guilty, I don't know how that's Christ. And so I feel really convicted about that. And that's all I'm going to do on this other side. I'm not here to win a fight and act like I'm right. I think that's so I think that's arrogance and egotistical on our part to fully know what it is that the creator of the universe knows
Right.
without a doubt. I think that's very, very difficult ground to stand on, and I don't want to. I'd rather choose this rock that says like, I don't know anything. I don't know anything, but I only know that I'm choosing to have Christ be king of my life, and that's a decision, and I'm okay using that language, understanding also that I don't fully think that this is where, I could get in trouble with Christians, I think that there's validity in all religion. I think there's validity in all faith spaces.
So one thing I love about your story is that you always centered your relationship with the Lord. You never moved away from that, even as you were navigating different identities and situation and life changes, right? And so how was that as far as trying to figure out who you are, who your new reality is with your new partner, but also making sure that Jesus was the center of your life? Because that's so difficult for so many people. And I know close friends that are like just trying to figure out how to make sense of that. Can you share a little bit?
Yeah, I think I mentioned about my relationship with God tying in to my relationship with my dad and music and just spirit movement. I correlated it a lot with my dad. And it's kind of like God became dad, and he promised to never leave me or forsake me. Like, I believed all these things that I read. Like, these stories weren't fed to me. I read them because I was hungry. And I loved the Bible as a kid. Like, I was taking adult level Bible study with the adults on Sunday. And I felt like such a little geek, but I'd be up there at the line with all of the other adults that got high notes, on their test. And I'm up there, like,
You guys took tests?
Yeah, we took tests because it was for the adults. So it was like this actual like course that they made you go through. And I took it as a kid because I was really fascinated by the Bible, fascinated by the stories that they taught. Like, I just felt like, wow, like God did that. Like this sense of like awe and wonder and mystery as a child. It was like, it lured me in, right? And I think I started to question the structure and the institution way before I started questioning God. Because to me, that wasn't God. The institution was the institution. I was very clear on that. Because my experiences, the really like personal ones happened at home, happened in my room. It wasn't because there was this culto going on with everybody speaking in tongues and people falling everywhere for it to be a move of the Spirit. No, it was in my room. I was alone. So I think because I had those very intimate, personal, like kind of wow, almost moments with God where I was receiving messages since I was a kid of, Katie, I'm going to do something crazy with you. Ya vas a ver, and then be like, okay, like, sure, so it's always been that kind of relationship. I think if I could pin it, like, it'd be like God just egging me on, like, ya vas a ver lo que voy a hacer. And I'd be like, okay, whatever, and but still trusting, still all while trusting, knowing that I'm taken care of. And like, okay, like another Bible verse is, and it's crazy because I know it in Spanish because, but I don't know about your audience, but pero aunque tu padre y tu madre te dejare, tu Dios con todo te recogerá. To live that, not just know this Bible verse, to live it. There's no way of me how could I separate myself from that knowing? That's a knowing now. It's not, and like a knowing that time after time, even when I think like things are falling apart, somehow they were falling into place. It wasn't that it was falling apart. It was just falling into place because it had to. So understand that even in shedding, God is in the shedding. God is in those moments that we don't even want to go through, but are necessary. So I think that was a very easy thing for me to understand. And it comes from a place of just living a life that's been full of struggle. It never came easy to me. Everything was always difficult. Being a woman in a Latino church where machismo is a very common thread in every household, especially if they came from Central America,
Right,
or places.
First generation.
First generation. There you go. First generation folk. They come with that way of being from their countries. And so to impose that here on a young lady that was extremely, overtly opinionated and had a lot of questions. I would sit in that class, and when something didn't make sense, I'd say, wait, how do you say this? But I just read this. How do you connect that? Because it doesn't align with what you're saying. And to be told, oh, you just don't get it, you're too young. Or in that, at first it was I was too young. I'm like, okay. And then when I wanted to learn how to play instruments, it was, oh, girls don't play instruments. Girls sing. You leave the instruments to the boys. And I'm like, girls can't, or you don't want them to. Because I know how to play 4 chords. So to me, it never... I don't know. It was just this constant, to me, I'm almost like a little scientist. You say this, well, let's test it. Let's test it. Vamos a ver. But and when I read that that's what Jesus tells us to do, test all things. And by, that we're supposed to be assessing these things. We're supposed to be wrestling with these thoughts. It's not normal. It's normal to do this thing. And I don't know. I just never felt like Jesus was this far off person that was watching me from the sky. Jesus was this very personal being that dwells within me, that is with me, carrying me, telling me what to do, telling me not to do, telling me to go that way, telling me not to go that way, reminding me of things and promises I've made to myself and making me accountable for those promises that I made to myself. That Jesus is carried with me. And again, like I say, very open to the idea of it being whatever thing you want to call it, universe. Because I understand that there's language, it's very Christianese that hurts people. They don't even want to hear it. So I also understand that there's this group of folk but I just urge you to just trust that this is coming from a place of just how I've learned to understand this God that was presented to me by my father, and I'm okay with still claiming the God of my father as my own. And I have a very clear understanding of that, but very open-minded. Like my partner, Raquel, is very much different than I am when it comes to her spirituality. And there's nothing but respect for that. There's just different methods to get to the same thing, because we're all just trying to listen and hear and do what's right for ourselves and what's for the greater good of not just maybe ourselves, but also those around us. And heck, let's just say humanity. I think that I just never struggled with it because I didn't think that was ever a question. I'm always going to be daddy's girl. That is an identity that I carry with me that has absolutely nothing to do with the church. Yes, the church gave me a platform to develop my gifts and develop my skill sets, but the church did not give me faith. The church did not give me hope. Let's say, if anything, it challenged this idea of what hope is, because I never felt hopeful in these places. I always felt depressed because I was a girl that was talented and gifted. So,
but the relationship was yours.
My relationship is the thing that was mine. It had nothing to do with them, and I'm grateful that my experience taught me that. Because I know I need my faith in order to do the things that now I feel called to do and charged to do. I don't think I could do it without the courage that comes with faith in that there is a God who loves me and wants
regardless,
loves me just like if Lucas, or just as if your daughters, whatever it is, you will love them with everything. And even if they might disappoint you in some way or another, tell me that you'd be it would be unconditional. It wouldn't become ahora no. not anymore.
it, yeah.
And you've reached my limit. Like, I mean, I think those things can happen with parents. You know, obviously we
Right,
can
of
go
course.
into a place of like drug abuse and
Mental health.
mental health. And obviously boundaries are very important. And I don't want to, you know, kind of say one thing to mean another. I want to be clear. But I feel strongly that if I'm called to something, I will be backed up. And I feel called to spread gospel. And the gospel that I feel that's been given to me is good news that you are loved. And there's nothing that you have to do to earn it. There's nothing. I mean, we sing songs about it, but we don't believe it. I mean, I don't get that kind of faith.
No.
I don't understand it. I've never had it because apparently yours is contingent with your mind and how you process this information, you know, versus maybe receiving new information that it could be beneficial to you, of maybe understanding that, you know, if your standpoint is the Bible is the end all, like in everything, I would have to say that I don't agree with you. And I think that's the first step for me of recognizing that this Bible, just like I have journals of what God has done in my life, maybe in 200, 300 years or something like that, people find those essays or people find those works of writing and say, this is the truth. We are so human in our ability to encapsulate just creator of everything. I go back to the same thing of I try not to put myself in a position of trying to know all things. The only thing that I do know is that in this life, everything that I've experienced, I have not seen God fail me. And I attribute all the good to God. I'm okay and accept the bad and the suffering that and we were never promised that we would not suffer.
Right.
We were never promised that. So and this is as someone who suffered, I can still say that I'm grateful for every step. And I lean more on trust and hope and in faith that it's all working for my good than leaning in certainty and wanting to be right and wanting to push my ideologies on people who don't think like me. I just think that we're wasting our time here. People just want to feel loved. And if our religion teaches us anything, is that our deity is love. There is no separating it. So, but yet we want to separate it when you're gay, you know, or, you know, you commit one of the deadly sins.
Yeah, you're living in sin. On that note, Katie, tell us, what do you love most about yourself?
I love my brain.
Yeah.
I love how it processes information. I love that when it gets stuck, it has to find another way. Just resourceful, fast, witty. I just realized I process information, I think, a lot faster than a lot of other people. And that, I love my brain. I love my brain. I feel like it's a good one, and it's taken me to places I didn't expect, for sure. So I'd say the thing I love the most about myself is my brain and my intelligence.
Yeah. And when you're in spaces or times where you feel low, what brings you joy? What do you look for? What do you reach for that just revives your soul?
There's two things, and I think they tie in. The first thing is sing. When I know that it's my balm to my wounds. I know that it's a self-soothing thing for me, and others feel that, I think. And I think that's what happens in the space. The people that need it to self-soothe, even that they go into their own, you know, self-soothing kind of practice, whether that's crying or whatever it is. Right, whatever. Everyone falls into the same, it creates that safe space to do that. And honestly, when I'm really down, the best thing that I can do is help someone else, because it takes me out of myself and helps me focus on this other person that, and it always does. It always helps me to just somehow move along. And usually if I could tie in those two things of helping people whilst singing, that's kind of like the happy, my happiest. Like there's no place I would rather be if I could be there, just in that space of we're all in community, feeling and sensing the same thing and allowing release.
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful. And I think that's the space I love to live in when I think I'm really down.
Great. Well, thanks for being vulnerable, for being authentic. And I'm so happy you're a part of the show.
Yay. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.